Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Good morning. Good morning. This is Andrea Simintov speaking to you from Jerusalem. Having a few technical problems today, but we are going to get our message out. Happy New Year. Wow. It feels like a lifetime since we last met, last spoken together, and I'm nervous. I'm a little nervous today, I have to admit. I've had my vaccine, and I'm very happy about that. I'm content, happy. I wish we weren't in this situation. I wish we weren't talking vaccines. I wish we hadn't lost. I wish we hadn't spent so much time talking about lost time over this year, because it's times, it's minutes, it's hours that we cannot get back. The reason I'm a little nervous today is that this show has been hijacked. What do I mean by hijacked? News out of Washington, D.C. last night here, but obviously it was during the day in America, hijacked all the things I wanted to share with you today. Because even though it's a world apart, 6,000 miles away, the world, due to internet, due to the World Wide Web, due to so much technology, has grown very, very small. So we really are a global neighborhood. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened in Washington, how it impacts us here, and indeed, I might even lose a friend or two. I'm hoping it won't be permanent, because I can no longer be perceived as marching lockstep to a philosophy that I have been charged with, but may not indeed reflect my inner soul. But listening to Israel News Talk Radio, you all know that you hear different sides. What is consistent is the voice of Israel News Talk Radio loves Israel, and the voice is indeed Jewish. So again, we'll be talking about things that may be a little bit surprising, my disappointment, my sadness, my inner rage, and having secretly been proven right. And we learned yesterday that just because one is bestowed with leadership doesn't mean that he or she knows how to lead. Andrea Simintov, I'll speak with you on the other side.
How did a nice Jewish girl from Delaware end up living in Israel? Shalom, I'm Natalie Sapinski. Join me on my show, Returning Home. Meet different people who have moved to Israel. Hear their personal stories, their highs, their lows, and everything in between. Each week, we talk to experts on immigration and the process of moving to Israel. Listen to Returning Home every Thursday, only on Israel News Talk Radio.
And we're back. Andrea Simintov, IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Write to me if you get angry with me today, if you love me more than ever. Please indeed write me a note, Andrea, at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and we will speak. All right. So last night I was on a Zoom meeting. It doesn't matter why. My elderly mother, I have to be in touch on a Zoom meeting with her nursing home, something I knew I needed to take care of. And in the kitchen, my husband, who is a diehard Donald Trump fan, thinks Donald Trump really is the second coming of Donald Trump, and was listening to this speech where he said, Donald Trump's going to be speaking today. And through the corner of my ear, I heard it. And suddenly it wasn't humorous anymore. It wasn't funny. And now I know why I have been wincing for 4 years, even as I backed his presidency, not gung-ho, not with a red MAGA hat. I have always been one who said, you vote for the candidate who best represents your interest. And sometimes that means, and we know that here in Israel, sometimes it means holding your nose while you pull the lever. I heard the speech. Oh, yeah, I heard his speech. Hold on, I lost my place on my notes today. I'm so dedicated to you here. I heard the sounds of madness, the sounds of conceit. Forgive me. The sounds of arrogance and stupidity. Nothing that he said, and nothing had been done to wisely comfort those who were disappointed in the election outcome. Nothing was done by that man to encourage those who put their faith in him to stay moral, stay conservative, stay patriotic, stay centered. I wasn't disappointed. Sometimes being proven right is the saddest thing that can happen. You know, miracles arose for those of us in Israel during the 4 years of the Trump administration. But if we think for a minute, if any of us listening in think that it was all about the man and not about the God in heaven who controls all things, man, are we missing that cosmic point. What happened yesterday in Washington, D.C. was due to something that we know, those of us who follow Torah know all too well. It was due to injured pride. The injured pride of a silly and a selfish man who allowed public outrage to fester and indeed encouraged misinformation in order that he should remain in office. What happened last night here in Israel, yesterday afternoon in Washington, D.C., was a culmination of base ignorance that has been perfected, honed, and manipulated by all sides. This morning, for all of us, and yes, those of you on the left are not exempt. You lost all validity when nothing that came out of Washington in the last 4 years was worthy of commendation, of a round of applause. There are no innocents here. The legacy that I believe would have emerged, could have emerged, about Donald Trump's misunderstood presidency after yesterday has been relegated to the dustbin of history because of, again I say it, his foolish, unleader-like pride, and in fact, his pampered disconnect with the people who entrusted him to guide them, to protect them. Oh, for shame. For shame. It's no error that the Parsha this week talks about Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our leader, that he was so great. But what would make him a prophet? He didn't have the yichus, the financial backing of, I don't even want to say that other guy's name again. Why was he worthy to lead Bnei Yisrael out of Mitzrayim, out of Egypt, into the desert for 40 years, to Har Sinai, to receive the Torah? The Torah doesn't talk about his early life as it does of the Avot, the forefathers, nor does it elaborate on his genealogy, his bank account, except stating that he was a descendant from the house of Levi. But what little the Torah tells us about his early life helps us to understand his personality and character as a young man, and why he was worthy of leadership. I have to interject and apologize and say something else. Very often my friend Kathy would say to me, don't you dare talk about American politics. Don't you talk about what's going on in America. But we both know that one of the reasons, if not the primary reason she would say this to me, is because I generally fell on a different side of the aisle for her. I'm extremely conservative. I admit it, not a fault. Although on this station, I would say that I'm pretty much the liberal, okay? And I wonder if I spouted the spewings of the silly, embarrassing left, would I have been encouraged to talk more about America? But I didn't. But today, I am indeed going into this because it relates to all of us. In the space of only 7 pesukim, 7 sentences, the Torah tells us 3 incidents in which Moshe championed the cause of justice. In the first, the Egyptian taskmaster, he's beating a Jew, so Moshe comes to his aid. In the second, 2 Jews are fighting, and he came to the aid of the weaker. But in the third incident, involving non-Jews, Yitros, the daughters of Jethro, they're saved by the shepherds of Moshe, even though he's running for his life. He had no time to stop. In each incident, he's protecting the underdog without seeking any reward for his action. Nechama Leibovich, one of the greatest teachers of our generation, points out that these incidents combine to prove the metal of the personality involved. And listen, guys, whatever side you fall on, don't be smug. Our leaders fall way short. Busha, busha, oh, for shame. In the first incident, maybe Moshe is motivated. Let's give him human, today's. He's motivated by the feelings of his own people and their oppression. As Rashi tells us, he saw their hard labor. He felt and shared their distress. In the second incident, well, you know what? He was revolted by the fighting among Jews. I find it revolting. And I'm no Moshe, what we have come to call sinat chinam, blind hatred. One interpretation, in fact, it says the matter has become known, is that Moshe wondered why the Jews were singled out among the 70 nations to suffer such hardship. Not that he witnessed, that they witnessed, they slander each other, they resort to character assassination, they inform on each other. He understood that maybe they deserved their punishment. Or maybe he was motivated by the 2 first incidents, that there's a reward in helping his brothers. But it's only after that third one, which involved no Jews, took place far away from his brothers from who he's fleeing, he decides again to defend the weak. Now we recognize that his motivation is based on unselfishness, pure justice. The text says, in those days Moshe grew up. He went out to his brothers and saw their hard labor. The Ramban explained that now he grew up in maturity and mind. Having discovered he was a Jew, he went out to see their suffering. He couldn't stand to see them enslaved. That's why he killed the Egyptian who was striking the Jew. Rabbi Yehuda Nachshoni gives us more insight into the personality of a leader by explaining that he grew up in the palace of a Paro. Only by growing up in a royal palace could he learn the elements of leadership and monarchy to develop the self-confidence, courage, and spiritual greatness necessary to lead. My friends, let me just look at the time here. Yeah, I want to stay with you. There's something in Judaism called yichus. It's a distinguished and righteous pedigree. Moshe? It's not recorded. Says Dayan Moshe Swift. Who cares who his father was? At a time in life and death, every son, every daughter of Israel must rise to the occasion and assume the height of responsibility, whether he be the son of a tailor or the son of a rabbi Israel's leader emerges from the home of an everyday Jewish mother or father. My friends, as we think about the events of this morning, if we think about the events of last year, and most important, thinking of the events of tomorrow, what does leadership mean to you and me? See you on the other side.
Shalom, everybody. Making a difference often takes just one moment and one person at a time. I am Orly Benny Davis, your show host on Israel News Talk Radios from Jerusalem with Love. You'll be hearing people talking about politics, religion, social issues, and making a better tomorrow. Join me, Orly Benny Davis, for God and Country. From Jerusalem with Love.
Wednesdays on Israel News Talk Radio.
One Minute of Torah. We begin the second of the 5 books of Moses this week with the Torah portion of Shemot, which means names. Moses encounters a fascinating sight, a thorn bush in fire but not being consumed. This was how God chose to appear in the conversation he was about to have with Moses regarding taking the Jewish people out of the Egyptian exile. Rashi, one of the greatest commentators on the Torah, teaches that God specifically chose the thorn bush to demonstrate that he is with us even in our most thorny, distressful, painful times. God then tells Moses what should be done when faced with the pain and suffering of another. Take off your shoes, he says. You are on holy ground. Like the priests who served in the holy temple barefoot, so should you react when in the presence of someone in anguish. Take off your shoes. Stand there in humility with your fellow in pain. Don't come with your brilliant philosophies and arrogant explanations to the person tested by God with tremendous challenges. Just stand there with them in humility, in awe. With your Ayin Minute of Torah, this is Chava Zukevich.
Okay, we're back. Andrea Simintov, pull up a chair on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Okay, we had some technical problems this morning, but I am trying. Maybe it's better. Maybe everything I'm saying today is upsetting people so much that they're saying better we shouldn't hear her. Okay, just one other sweet thing. Again, we're talking about leadership today, and the Parsha, this week's Torah Parsha, after my rage last night, I can just think how the 4 years I'm thinking, that's my guy. That's my guy. And cringing at the foot in the mouth disease, cringing, all this opportunity to develop elegance, class. And there's something to be said about wearing your royalty, wearing it, with pride. I see there's something wrong with my computer here. You know that we're working out of our homes because of COVID. We got to talk more about COVID because we haven't spoken enough about COVID. I just remember this lovely, lovely story. Where is that lovely story? Oh, I think I lost my story. Where Moses puts the, it was like really sweet. This Forno tells us about how Moshe went alone to commune and to pray. And the Midrash tells this beautiful story where he puts a kid, a little baby goat. Is that what you call a baby goat, a kid? Who ran away from the flock to drink from a cool stream. He sees this kid, the individual. And Moshe hadn't realized that the kid was so thirsty, but he knew that it was indeed exhausted from running. And what does he do? He puts the kid on his shoulders and carries it back to the flock. Being a shepherd, teaches us great patience, taking pity on a small animal when no one is watching. This was a sign of great patience. To lead a people, one has to have patience. One mustn't mock them, but endure their burdens. To treat everyone as an individual. and to pray for them when they do wrong. Moshe Rabbeinu, he exhibited these characteristics before he could merit being a leader. All right, I've gotten out of my system. My intense, my indeed deep sadness this morning. Sadness for so many. Sadness for all of us. Okay, new lockdown. Hello. We'll be doing this show forever from our home. I got to invite you in the kitchen. Next show, maybe I'll have you all cook with me. That'll be a little bit non-controversial. It may be ugly. But anyway, let's see. Let me just open this window so the engineer can yell at me as usual. All right. So now our new lockdown starts, I think, midnight tomorrow night, Shabbos. I don't know why it doesn't start at candle lighting. Let's already be holy. But anyway, currently, we can't, we can go supermarkets, we can go to pharmacies, necessary travel, necessary work, but a lot of people are breaking it. Well, apparently we're going to be under some kind of a Jewish version, not exactly martial law, martial law-ish, like Jewish. They voted on Tuesday to tighten our lockdown after the restrictions were imposed over a week ago. And I'm just trying to think that it's going to start midnight on Friday. Transportation is going to be down to a little trickle. No flying abroad unless it's a terrible emergency. Things closed. Our numbers are out of control in little Israel. Yes, indeed. We can't compare to the rest of the world. But I'm going to say it, we have a different standard here. And apparently in Israel, we are experiencing 30 deaths a day. These are not numbers, boys and girls. Every man, every woman who leaves this earth is taking with them the world, their perceptions, their loves, their passions. Underneath the ground is the roiling, not R-O-Y, R-O-I-L, passions, disappointments, desires, aspirations of human beings, with the loss of every human being, not numbers. We are diminished, greatly diminished. So if in Israel it's 30 nefashot, souls, pieces of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, our God in heaven, are leaving because of neglect, stupidity, damn fools who won't put on a mask because of their civil rights. For shame, for shame. I'm frightened. Thankfully, I know that God won't ask me to sit at his right hand on Judgment Day. So, I'm scared what I'll have to stand in line for. Okie doke. Also, God, the show's sounding bleak. I got to get fun in a minute. Okay, my last bleak thing. Last bleak. All right. Apparently, our hospitals, one of this, thankfully, we're not listening to the protesters in the street who are determining when we should or shouldn't have a lockdown, because we wouldn't have a lockdown. We would continue to infect one another. We would continue to be arrogant and disgusting to one another. What does this have to do with me? But apparently the hospitals have stepped up, our front lines of defense, and said, we can't handle it anymore. We have to send away patients. We have to shut down. We're opening up beds in the garage. So most of the medical centers in Israel haven't reported terrible upset to their processes. Haifa's Rambam Healthcare campus is the biggest one. They announced that they're going to limit their activity. You know what? If God forbid somebody is having a heart condition, if God forbid somebody breaks a bone, if God forbid somebody needs to be checked out because they're terribly frightened, if God forbid somebody is putting off a cancer diagnosis because the hospitals are too overwhelmed, well, just pretend it's someone you love. Came across a great quote by the writer Annie Lamott. She's great. She's this white woman who wears these braids and dreadlocks, and I'm in a writer thing going on. Anyway, Annie Lamott, I haven't read her stuff. I suspect from reading her bio that we would sit on opposite sides of the Senate floor. But having said that, I love this quote. Here she becomes a sister. What does she say, Annie Lamott? Quote, "Oh my God, what if you wake up someday and you're 65 or 75 and you never got your memoir or novel written? Or you didn't go swimming in warm pools and oceans because your thighs were jiggly and you have a nice, big, comfortable tummy? Or you were just so strung out on perfectionism and people-pleasing that you forgot to have a big, juicy, creative life of imagination and radical silliness and staring off into space like when you were a kid? It's going to break your heart. Just don't let this happen." Oy, do I love that. Yeah. If you're given the mic, shout and sing. If you're given the floor, get up and share words of love. If you're given a family, nurture them. If you're given the breath of life, damn it, live. I remember years ago when I was on a reality television show for 5 episodes, in between takes, I would say to the producers, "Oh, I feel so grateful for being selected to this show." And one day this producer, he had like piercings and tattoos and shaved heads and pieces and things growing out of his chin, said to me, "Nobody in the audience cares that you feel so humble and not up to the task. You got the job. Show them what you can do." I think about that for all of us. Life is in session. It ain't no dress rehearsal. We're here. Let's not make it about us like some of our silly, silly leaders. They got the job. Let's demand more. And if we can't milk more out of those who by fate, fortune, mazel, or accident got the job, well then, let's demand more of ourselves. All right, last thing. I told you, I got the shot. The vaccine rolled out. Apparently, a lot of Jews want to move to Israel now. It's a little embarrassing for those of us who moved to Israel because it's our country. We moved to Israel because it's the only land we have. We moved to Israel because our enemies said it's not ours, and by living here, we proved them wrong. People, whatever your excuse is, look into your heart. Look what happened in Egypt and come home. I'm waiting for you. See you on the other side.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
This is Shai Ben-Tekoa, and each week I'll be webcasting to you from Judea, origin of the word Jew, a people besieged and beleaguered in every generation. Nazi Germany's but a memory, but in its place the world invented the phantom Palestinians as this generation's internationally authorized Jew killers. Tune in for a different slant on life in Israel, Phantom Nation, every Monday.
Hi, I'm Rabbi David Aaron. The soul basics are the most profound, the most essential, and yet often the most neglected in our education. Join me for Soul Talk on Israel's News Talk Radio and discover the secrets to love, spiritual growth, and personal power.
Radio.
Okay, we're back. Andrea Simmental, pull up a chair. Sorry. The producer reminded me that this is the last segment of the show, and I think he's thrilled. Okay. What did you have in her coffee today? I've been just locked up too long. At the beginning of the show, because we were having all these technical issues, I forgot to give it my romper room moment and say good morning, good evening to my friends in the U.S., Boker Tov Eretz Yisrael. Hi, Canada. Hi, Canada. Hi, Canada. UK. Wow, you guys are under a hefty lockdown as well, I understand. France is listening in today, if they're still on. Spain, Brazil, New Zealand is listening in. The Russian Federation, we have listeners in. Malaysia, you've been on a few times already now. Drop me a note, Andrea at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Tell me who you are. And good morning to the Dominican Republic. Very nice. It's an honor. It's an honor to share airspace, to share earth space, to share hope space and love space. I do not want anything more for my family and those I love and care about than all of you want for you and yours. That, my friends, we have in common. Okay, this week's Parsha. Hey, we're in a new book. Interesting, because the book starts, as I said at the beginning, the book is Shemot, and it starts with the story of, again, this sort of nondescript individual named Moshe, who came out of nowhere. Again, no big legacy, no big yichus, as we say. You can all practice saying that 3 times fast. And the change in eras, it's sudden. It's unexpected. It's unpredictable. The Jewish people, we've lived in Israel for over a century in the land of Goshen, in affluence and security. And by the way, if you think you're hearing some underlying message in today's Parsha, you can go with it. I give you permission. They're living in such affluence and security. They're apparently very well integrated in the Egyptian society. They're comfortable with their futures there. And then there arises a new king, a different era of 80 years of slavery and death, persecution, torture. Hello, where'd he come from? How was it that no one anticipated such a scenario? Paro, he calls for volunteers to help build and modernize Egypt's infrastructure. The Jews, always good citizens, always superior contributors to whatever society they're in. They volunteer en masse. Slowly, they noticed that the anti-Semitic talk gets started and that they're the only ones showing up for the work. And eventually, they came to work on the Egyptian city fortresses as slaves. Soon, the entire Jewish population is enslaved. They don't even know where it came from. In the blink of a historical eye, I love that phrase. Thank you, Rabbi Beryl Wine. The Jewish population goes from riches to rags, from citizens to slaves, from high society to becoming non-persons. And the truth of the matter is that this enormous sea change in the status of the Jews in Egypt, they were caught by surprise. But was it really a surprise? They knew that Abraham had a dream about bondage and exile, but they didn't imagine that they were the generation, that it was possibly even about them, and that Egypt, glorious, modern, with it, Egypt is the place that it would occur. So when exactly did it occur to them that they were the victims, that they were unprepared? It would take the leadership of Moshe to kind of like refocus their glasses, to change their thinking, to make them realize that their future no longer lay in living in Egypt. It would take a Moshe to teach them that there is such a thing called redemption. And indeed, it's worthy of prayer. Even so, our rabbis in the Midrash, they concluded that most of the Jews, I talk about this all the time, only 20% of the massive Jewish population merited, both physically and spiritually, to leave Egypt. The truth is that in any generation that lives at a time of unforeseen change and finds themselves in a difficult situation, it becomes a generation of uncertainty that wants to relive its past, but feels powerless to deal with what's going on now, today, not to mention the future. Today, we're undergoing an incredible change. Economically, health, socially, and indeed, it's not new, security. Suddenly the past is looking kind of nicer because today feels so terrible, so shaky, so unwieldy. Our task is to deal effectively, efficiently, and with open eyes that which is facing us now. You know, the example of Moshe has to be replicated to the best of our abilities. The Torah always demands that Jews behave. Oh, I'm embarrassed. You know, I'm embarrassed even saying this line to you, but I'm going to risk it because I'm not going to look at our ugliness on the gossip column pages, but instead that Jews have always been charged with behaving wisely, rationally, with faith and with belief. Moshe's task is to fulfill this ideal situation of Jewish behavior and goals. This leader, Moshe, he travels this very long road from being raised as a prince in the house of Paro to being a hunted man. Indeed, hiding behind rocks and bushes, some of which even burn, to become the messenger of destruction to that very house in which he was raised. The Torah doesn't record for us Moshe's personal trials, his angst in adjusting to situations that were completely new to him. Part of his greatness lies in his God-given ability to exactly put other people first, to ignore his upraising, except to use it for the betterment of others. So as we begin this book, I'm encouraging all of us to kind of resolve to hang in there. Deal with what's going on now to the best of our abilities. If we will it, better days are on the way. You know, in many ways, the Torah leaves us unprepared for the events that are recorded in this week's Parsha, which is all about us. It doesn't describe to us, you know, what happened to change the situation. It is. It's like when people say, let's analyze anti-Semitism. Let's build a museum of tolerance. The Torah says, forget about it. It's a natural state of affairs. It's to be expected. The Egyptian exile begins on this high note, but it deteriorates into sorrow, into deliberate, targeted genocide. And still, a miraculous redemption is on the horizon. The Torah doesn't dwell upon the motives for the occurrence of this pattern of events. Why didn't he like us? What did the Jews do wrong? Why was Paro such a hater? He'd be hating. What was the economic or social factors of the time that allowed for such a dramatic worsening of the Jewish position in Egypt? The Torah doesn't address these issues. It's almost as if it wants us to understand that these things happen blindly in human history, and to dwell on them are time wasters. Did I mention already 3 times the Museum of the, The Museum of Tolerance? That's my favorite. Particularly in Jewish history, the attempts of historians and sociologists to explain these irrational events, they're really useless. Babylonia, Spain, France, Germany, Eastern Europe, modern, Muslim Middle East. We're unprepared to recognize that the savior of Israel is Moses. We're told he was miraculously saved from crocodiles in the Nile by the daughter of the Paro and raised in the royal court. He sympathizes with the brutalized Jewish slaves. We hear nothing regarding him for 60 years until he reemerges as a shepherd. It's hardly a resume that one would expect for the leader of Israel, the greatest of all prophets and the teacher of all humankind. So this is where we get to us. Where did his holiness and greatness stem from? How was it developed? Who were his mentors? What were his experiences? No clue. All of life is a mystery. And the Jewish story remains in its base the most inexplicable of them. This story sets the stage for everything else that's going to follow. It's why the Jewish people, when accepting the Torah pledge to God, that we will do and we will listen. Na'aseh v'nishma. If we want to understand first, we're never going to come to it. The divine hand guides us, but it's never subject to our rational thoughts and explanations. My friends, if, like the song says in that really cheesy movie from the 70s, there's got to be a morning after, let us together start tilling the soil for this season of sowing. Let's make the earth ready to receive seeds of kindness, honesty, humility, acceptance. Call it a New Year's resolution if you must. It's all available just beyond our spiritual reach. Shabbat Shalom.
Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. Just click the orange button at the top of the IsraelNewsTalkRadio.home page, log in as yourself or an anonymous guest, and join in on the fun. You'll meet other listeners from all over the world who listen to Israel News Talk Radio, and you can make new friends. Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. It's the closest you can get to being in the studio with us.
We love listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Where can you get the inside news on Israel? At Israel News Talk Radio, we're dedicated to sharing Israel's inside story with the world by providing our listeners with news on Israeli politics, current affairs, and Israeli Jewish culture. The Israel News Talk Radio homepage also provides you, the listener, with useful information at your fingertips, with scrolling news headlines, weather, currency exchange, Shabbat candlelighting times, and so much more. Our radio programming is always accessible and on demand. We operate absolutely free of charge for everyone, everywhere. If you love what we do, partner with us now by becoming an Israel News Talk Radio supporter. With your support, you'll be inscribed on our Israel News Talk Radio Wall of Fame. There's nothing like us in the world. Be part of something great. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.